I'm away for half a week, and just look at how much Overwatch League off-season news has dropped over these past few days. And here I was saying that things had been dying down a little during my last video. Anyways, there's plenty of moves that I have to discuss with you all today, just to catch up, so let's not delay any further and instead get straight into it. With so much to cover, it's hard to know exactly where to start, but I'm going to begin by talking about the Dallas Fuel, who in the past week have announced the signings of Fearless and Jexay. Starting with Jexay, his move to Dallas was hardly a surprise and expected by many of us, given his historic links to Element Mystic and Coach Rush. With the team previously having no players signed at this main support position, it makes sense that they wanted to reform the support pairing of Jexay and Repel that have played together during their time on Element Mystic and more recently on the Houston Outlaws. I guess you have to wonder now whether we should call them the Dallas Outlaws now as well. In regard to Jexay, however, even though he's rejoining an environment where he saw his best performances as a player, there are still some questions lingering over him after his displays at the Overwatch League level. There's always been the suggestion that he is a fantastic shot caller, but his time on both Seoul and now Houston have left a lot to be desired. I'm hoping that under the guidance of Rush, he can have a real bounce back season next year, because for me he's the only major concern I have with the Fuel's current roster for 2021, and unless he steps up, he might be the reason why they can't compete amongst the best teams of the championship. As for Fearless, at a first glance this move seems really shocking, with Fearless being one of the comeback players of last year, and arguably one of the best main tanks on the 2020 season. And now he's left one of the top teams in the league to join the rolling hype train that is the Dallas Mystic. Of course, a closer examination of his move unveils a bit of context behind why this has happened, with Fearless now rejoining Rush and some of his other teammates from when he played on Element Mystic back in 2017. He mentioned in his farewell message to the Dragons fans that this was the primary reason why he wanted to join Dallas, and given his fantastic past 12 months, it's understandable why Rush hasn't hesitated to bring back another one of his former players into the Fuel fold. In constructing this 2021 roster, it appears that Rush is amassing all the best players he has coached over the past few years, whether that be on Element Mystic or more recently on the Paris Eternal, and with a tank line of Fearless and Hanbin, now combining with a DPS duo of Sparkle and Doha, as well as Jexay, Repel and Fielder at support. This is a roster, on paper, that has progressed leaps and bounds compared to what Dallas had in 2020. At risk of repeating myself, however, whilst even I'm now struggling also not to get too carried away, I would again warn Fuel fans just to temper their excitement and expectations somewhat. Fundamentally, we still haven't seen them play, and looking at Rush and Element Mystic's history, these are a group of players that often excel in certain metas, but perhaps have had more question marks in others. Regardless though, such high profile deals of this manner only reinforce that Hashra is really putting the Dallas Mystic, Dallas Eternal, Dallas Outlaws, Dallas Fuel in the best position possible to fight for a championship next season. And after 3 years of mediocrity and disappointment, 2021 looks like the first genuine opportunity this organisation will have to seriously compete alongside the best teams in the Overwatch League. So these are definitely exciting times for this Fuel outfit and their fans. Pivoting for a moment though, to Shanghai's perspective, the departure of Fearless does raise some interesting thoughts about what they will do moving forward. Fascinatingly, in response to some of the confusion surrounding this trade, the team themselves put out a statement where they answered the most pressing questions. First and foremost, this trade was not one they had to make for any financial reasons. As they explain, it was completely unplanned. I find it very interesting to hear that apparently the team did receive higher offers for Fearless, but after consulting the player themselves, the Dragons chose to respect his decision both on leaving and where he wanted to go. If this is exactly what happened, then I have to give a lot of praise to the Shanghai management, as this is an incredibly generous and respectful road to take for one of their longest serving players, and one that goes against most business-like practices that we often see dominate the esports scene today. Further to that point though, the team has also emphasised that they are not in any financial or budgeting difficulties, and are certainly looking to push on from their third place finish last season. From a pure quality point of view though, it's a move that despite what the team has said, still feels like a major hit to their chances, with Fearless for me displaying the highest level of Winston play that we saw in 2020. That said, despite his fantastic year, it would be wrong of us to ignore perhaps some potential weaknesses in Fearless's game. Compared to his outstanding Winston, his other main tank heroes did perhaps look a little weaker, suggested by the fact that it appeared that Stand 1 was claiming a more regular starting spot in the squad over him towards the end of the season and during playoffs. This brings us on to the news that dropped last night, as following plenty of speculation, the Shanghai Dragons officially unveiled the signing of Fate from the Florida Mayhem. Coach Moon is clearly a big admirer of Fate after their time together on the LA Valiant, and even further back as a part of Mighty AOD. So it's not that surprising to see the Dragons pursue Fate after they let Fearless join Dallas. In looking at Fate's Overwatch League career, it is very clear that his inaugural season time with the Valiant was his best, with many of us rating him as one of the top 3 to 5 main tanks in the league at that time. but during the last 2 years, he has been a bit more subdued. This is probably weighted with recency bias, but whilst I think Fate is a solid main tank, I would currently rate him lower than Fearless, and unless he sees a resurgence next year after heading back to Coach Moon, then I fear Shanghai have seen a downgrade at one of the most important positions. Overall, this is a situation I'm personally very curious to see develop as this off-season progresses, because as things stand right now, I do think the Dragons are weaker now compared to where they were during the 2020 season, when really they should be looking to make the additions needed to push on from the 3rd place finish they achieved this year, to take home the crown in 2021. So I'm interested to see how Fate develops with his new team, and also whether Shanghai decide to make any more changes over the coming weeks. Staying in the APAC region, the next side I want to come on to are the Guangzhou Charge, who have been making plenty of changes over the past week themselves. First off, they officially confirmed the release of Happy, Nero and Shu, due to their contracts expiring, as we saw in last month's player contract status article. Starting with Nero, his release is not that shocking due to the fact that he had some visa issues earlier in the year and general struggles with joining the team during the COVID pandemic. And with the Charge now looking to focus on a less global and mixed squad for 2021 following the release of Neptuno, it seemed inevitable that Nero would be on his way out as well. Now a free agent though, I expect Nero to receive a lot of interest from a number of Western teams, given the qualities he's demonstrated over the past 2 years. And if he can find a good environment where he can claim a more consistent starting spot, I have a good feeling he can contribute even more and really show off his peak potential moving forward. The departure of Happy and Shu, however, are a bit more confusing, as I think the pair, alongside Eileen and more recently Krong, have been the team's best players since they joined the league in 2019. Happy at times can admittedly be a bit inconsistent, but when he's on form, he's arguably one of the best pop-off snipers and DPS players in the Overwatch League, and I'm confident that he's a free agent that will be desired by a number of squads over the coming weeks. Shu meanwhile has consistently stayed at a high level during his time on Guangzhou, and despite perhaps being overshadowed by others, is still regarded by many as a premier flex support player. So unless it was him who didn't want to extend his contract, I do find it a bit odd as to why the Charge would let him go and become one of the top free agents available now, although I'll return to Shu shortly. As well as the departures though, the Charge have now unveiled a couple of signings that they have made over the past 48 hours, with Kariv and Mandu joining the lineup. Kariv's year with Toronto in 2020 didn't go as he or the team had planned, but I still think he's got a lot left in the tank, and has proven he has the ability to pop off and carry a team when he's in the groove and in the right environment. I personally would take Shu over Kariv, but when looking at the free agent flex supports currently available, I'm not sure who the Charge could have turned to, and I don't think they've made too big of a downgrade here. So I'm interested to see what he can do on a non-mixed side next year. His new support partner, Mandu, is also an intriguing addition. He never really got a good opportunity to show off his potential in New York last year, due to being underage for quite a while, and his aggressive main support play from O2 blasting contenders is a style that I don't think suited the Excelsior's historical playing philosophy. On the Charge therefore, and alongside Kariv, I think he's in a good spot to now really prove his worth, and I reckon this is a new environment where he can show his promise and potential, which we had hoped to see last season. Looking from a team perspective though, it appears that Arachne is building quite an aggressive and proactive roster for 2021, if his first 2 pickups are anything to go by. And after 2 decent seasons as a middle of the pack side, I'm looking forward to seeing whether this front foot and likely entertaining playstyle will pay off for the Guangzhou Charge next season, and their future activity during this off-season could play a major part in determining this, so I'll be keeping my eye on them. As I said a minute ago however, I now want to return to Shu, who not long after being officially confirmed as a free agent, was unveiled as the newest member of the LA Gladiators. This was a move that Halo rumoured just over a week ago, and it really shows that the Gladiators are buying into the 2021 season. Shu is an incredibly talented flex support player, and I think the team have made a massive upgrade on their support line with his arrival, in light of the retirement of Shaz. One concern that people may have had about this move is that Shu is moving to North America and a mixed roster, but I think it's important to mention and remember that Shu has had previous experience playing on a mixed roster, with his time in contenders split between periods on Flash Lux and Metro Athena in Korea, before then joining the North American teams of the Toronto Esports and Uprising Academy. On paper, this feels like a home run hit for the Gladiators, and now, just as I'm making this video, they've also confirmed the arrival of Moth, so I think a serious case could be made for the Gladiators having the strongest support pairing in the league right now. We were all aware it might be happening, but the bombshell news today that Moth is confirmed to be joining Shu and the Gladiators for 2021 is both shocking and mouth-watering. Moth joining the squad helps stabilise a main support role that, although had been strong for many years, perhaps has become a little unreliable towards the end of 2020 after a decline in performance from Big Goose. We already know that Moth has been one of, if not the best at his position in the Overwatch League over the past couple of years. The question now for him is whether his extremely high standards can continue in partnership with Shu, and also on a team not named the Shock. Before all this news dropped though, a few days ago the Gladiators also unveiled a new addition to their squad, as they signed the Contenders main tank Muze. For me, this off-season, Muze was right up there alongside Mag as being one of the highest main tank targets after a strong year in Contenders with WGS Phoenix, following an even more impressive 2019 as a member of Talon Esports. And he's a prospect who I've been excited for a while to see get his opportunity at the Overwatch League level. The potential of Muze, combined in a tank partnership alongside the experience of Space, could prove to be a great combination for the LA Gladiators in 2021. That said, I would suggest a little caution perhaps, with the Gladiators in the past struggling a bit with the integration of their main tank players, like Fisher and OGE, although here I'm hoping that won't end up happening. Looking at it more generally though, the Muze acquisition, as well as Moth and Shoes, is a brilliant start to the off-season for this organisation, and maybe with just one more DPS piece, they could end up having a disgusting starting lineup for next year, which could arguably be considered the favourite for the championship. I think Gladiators fans should be incredibly excited about the direction their team is going in, especially with DP now just focusing on coaching. And if everything does come together when they play with each other for the first time on stage, I honestly believe that the sky's the limit for this team, especially if Birdring and Kevster continue their 2020 momentum. The last major news from this week comes from the Philadelphia Fusion, who last night tweeted thank you and goodbye to Sado, Fury and Ivy. After the signing of Mano to the team, if you asked Philly fans how they were feeling, you would have probably received a lot of positive responses, with the fans loving the start from 9K as a head coach. Following this culling last night however, I reckon there will be a bit more confusion and doubt now. Don't get me wrong, the release of Sado does make some sense, with the team now wanting to focus on Mano, but the fact they haven't re-signed Fury or Ivy does raise some major questions. You'll all know that I've been a massive fan of Fury since the inaugural season, and I find it strange that given he's one of the best off-tanks in the league, the team haven't decided to bring him on board for another crack at the title next year. Ivy meanwhile showed an incredible amount of improvement and development in 2020, and I have to say his reliability and consistent performances are something the Fusion could end up missing going forward. I'm honestly at a loss for why Philly have decided to take this course of action, and I'm fascinated to see who they decide to acquire in their places. For those released however, they enter an amazing free agency period, as now perhaps some of the most desirable players available. Sado's fantastic comeback season is sure to bring some attention his way, with the space now available in Florida looking promising. Ivy meanwhile could join KDG in a triumphant return to Toronto, whilst Fury honestly has his pick of nearly every other team in the league, and I'll be closely watching out for where these three eventually sign. To finish up with the remaining news I have from around the league, let's start with the Washington Justice, who announced that they had signed Jerry after he left the Boston Uprising. This wasn't a move I was expecting, but Jerry offers an interesting option to a Washington side that is once again looking to push on next season after an impressive playoff run behind Decay. As a member of a better team now, it would be interesting to see whether Jerry can continue to put in strong performances, and even if he can raise his game further, now that he could be partnering up with Decay. It's not a move that I think is blowing anyone's minds, but I think it gives Washington more depth and options at the DPS role, with the Justice not wanting it to be just a one-man band next year. That being said, interestingly, both Janu and AimGod have announced that their 2021 options have been declined by the team. In many ways this is the opposite of what I was just saying, as you would have imagined that both of these players would be a key part in the continued growth and improvement of Washington next year. Now of course it could just be that the Justice are renegotiating their contracts, or instead have other players in mind. But if Janu and AimGod do become free agents, I'm certain that the pair will receive plenty of offers. The Justice are carrying a lot of momentum right now, but without these two key components of their success at the end of last season, or further future additions, their promise of improving next season may be somewhat in doubt. So whilst the signing of Decay, Mag and Jerry is a strong first foundation, I still need to see more from the team this off-season before I'm fully convinced about the 2021 Washington Justice. In another surprising move, the Toronto Defiant welcomed back Beast for another year with the team. I thought Beast had a rough year on Toronto in 2020, but looking back on it retrospectively, a lot of that could be pinned down to the players on the side around him, and the chopping and changing coaching staff. We all know that Beast has plenty of potential looking back at his Fusion Uni days, and under KDD's coaching he could see a marked improvement, like we've seen from other main tank players from one year to the next. It's a move I'm certainly not completely sold on though, but I'm willing to give him the opportunity to improve, and I'm curious to see whether the new look 2021 Defiant are a side where he does flourish next season. Lastly, I need to cover the retirements or breaks from the game that have been announced over the past week. Karkar has retired after not finding the game fun anymore, whilst Roki has retired as a player to pursue a coaching career, where I think his great personality could be well suited. But Ark is another who is now retired after 3 mixed years in the league. Whilst his performances may not have always been the greatest, he certainly has a fantastic character, and I'm sure many of us will miss his post-game interviews, which often gave us a rare look inside the workings of our Korean Overwatch League squads. Then there's Shawfor and Nevix, who have both announced they are taking breaks on the game, which is sad to see. Shawfor's post about this wasn't a great surprise, as it has looked for quite a while that he's fallen out of love with playing the game competitively, and instead seems to be enjoying streaming far more. Nevix meanwhile was more of a surprise given his potential, but I wish all of them the best in their future endeavours, whatever that ends up being. As I'm editing this video, a couple more droplets of news have been announced, so I thought I'd just mention them before this video ends. First up, to no one's surprise, the Philadelphia Fusion confirmed that Carpe was sticking with the team for 2021. Hope that cheers you up, Philly fans. The Boston Uprising, meanwhile, revealed the signing of I'm37. He's a name I'm sure many of you will be familiar with after his Path to Pro speedrun in 2019. Whilst his time in the Overwatch League last year was a little underwhelming, I'm37 has really pushed on and developed over the past 12 months by returning to Contenders. After joining the Uprising Academy, he was loaned to WGS Phoenix, where he played a key role in the team picking up the Contenders Career Season 2 Championship. He's one of these players that has really excelled by returning to Contenders, and I expect him to return to the league next year with a vengeance, especially as following his promotion, I'm37 is reunited with his WGS coach Laurie. In a last tidbit, I will say I'm disappointed the Uprising didn't make a separate tweet for this, but they also announced the release of Axiom, who hopefully can further his career in a new environment. For now though, that's everything I have in the way of Overwatch League off-season news, but once I hear a bit more, I'll be sure to post another video. I know things have been a little focused on the Overwatch League off-season lately, but for the rest of this week, I'm hoping to bring you all some other things, both World Cup and Contenders related, if I can, just to mix things up a bit, which will be a nice change of pace. So if you have enjoyed the video, then please be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and you can also follow me on Twitter or my Discord, both linked down below. Till next time though, I want to say a big thank you for your patience and for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.